I am 72 now. I don't move as quickly as I used to, and most mornings begin with me sitting on the edge of the bed, waiting for my body to agree to stand. There's a kind of delay in everything, in my hands, in my knees, in my thinking sometimes. I used to believe I was somewhere in the middle of my life. I wasn't. Most people who hear that will think they still are. Time doesn't correct you when you're wrong about it. It just keeps going. I live alone now. The house is quiet in a way I didn't know was possible. Not peaceful, just quiet. The kind that makes small sounds feel louder than they should be. The fridge humming, the clock ticking, my breathing at night. It wasn't always like this. When I was younger, in my 30s and 40s, life felt structured, predictable. I had a job that required long hours. I told myself it was necessary, that it was what a man was supposed to do. I woke up early, left before the sun fully came up some days, came home tired, ate dinner, watched a bit of television, slept. That routine lasted for years. My wife was there through all of it. She moved through the house quietly, but not in the way it feels quiet now. Back then, there was movement, dishes being washed, laundry folding, the sound of her voice on the phone with someone. I remember her asking me how my day was. I would say, same as always. That was usually enough for me. I assumed it was enough for her too. This is what I believed for decades, that stability was the same as closeness, that providing was the same as being present. It didn't feel like neglect. It felt like responsibility. There were small moments I remember now, though I didn't think much of them then. She would sit beside me on the couch while I watched television. Sometimes she would start to say something, then stop. I noticed it, but I didn't ask. I thought if it mattered, she would say it again. That's something people assume, that important things repeat themselves until you respond. They don't always. There were evenings she suggested we go out, just for a walk or to visit someone. I often said I was too tired. I said it without much thought. I worked all day. I believed that earned me rest. She would nod, say, okay, and that would be the end of it. I didn't see anything wrong with that. Over time, those suggestions became less frequent. I didn't notice when they stopped completely. That's the part that's difficult to explain, not because it's complicated, but because it was so easy to miss. Nothing dramatic happened. There were no arguments, no big confrontations, just fewer words, fewer attempts, more silence, but not the kind that feels empty right away, the kind that blends into routine so well you don't question it. We still ate dinner together, we still shared the same space, but something was thinning out. I didn't have language for it then. I do now, but it came too late to matter. She started spending more time in other rooms, reading, sitting by the window, sometimes just looking outside. I remember thinking she liked the quiet. I didn't ask what she was thinking. This is what people don't notice until it stops being theoretical. Absence doesn't always look like leaving. Sometimes it looks like staying, but less each day. There was a period when she stopped asking me about my day. I noticed that. I thought maybe she had just gotten used to the answer. I didn't consider that she might have stopped because it no longer felt like a conversation. I filled my time with work, with small tasks, with routines that made me feel productive. Productivity is convincing. It makes you believe you're doing something that matters. It doesn't tell you what you're not doing. Years went by like that. I can't point to a specific day where things changed. It wasn't a single moment. It was accumulation, missed questions, unanswered attempts, conversations that never started. There were nights when she went to bed earlier than me. I would stay up, watching television, telling myself I needed time to unwind. I thought there would always be another night to talk. That's something else people assume, that time is something you can return to later when it's more convenient. It doesn't wait in the way you think it does. Eventually, she got sick. It wasn't sudden, but it wasn't slow enough either. The kind of illness that shifts everything quietly at first. More doctor visits, more time spent resting. I was there more during that time. Physically, I mean. I drove her to appointments, sat in waiting rooms, picked up medications. I did what needed to be done. But even then, I didn't fully understand what had already been lost. She spoke less as the months went on. Not because she couldn't, but because there wasn't much left to say between us. That realization didn't come to me then. It comes to me now. There was one evening I remember clearly. She was sitting in her usual chair by the window. The light was low. I had just come back from the pharmacy. I asked if she needed anything. She looked at me for a moment, then said, "No, just that." I accepted it and went into the kitchen. I think about that moment more than I should, not because of what she said, because of what I didn't ask after. She died a few months later. It was quiet. There were people around for a short time. Then they left, and the house returned to being still. But it was a different kind of still. Something had ended in a way that doesn't restart. That's the part people misunderstand about loss. They think it's about missing someone. It's not just that. It's the removal of any possibility to correct what was left undone. There are no more chances to ask a question differently. No more evenings to stay instead of turning away. No way to return to those small moments and choose something else. They're fixed, permanent. I walk through the house now and see things I didn't pay attention to before. Her chair, the way the light comes through the window in the afternoon, the quiet. It's all the same, but it isn't. What's missing is not just her presence. It's the version of me that could have responded differently. That version doesn't exist anymore either. I used to believe that understanding comes with time, that eventually you figure things out. That belief stayed with me for a long time. It wasn't true in the way I thought. Understanding came, but it didn't change anything. It just made everything clearer after it was already over. This is what I assumed, that I would notice when something important needed my attention, that it would feel urgent, that it would interrupt my routine. It didn't. It stayed quiet. It waited in small moments that didn't seem important enough to act on. I let those moments pass, for years. People think loneliness is obvious, that it announces itself. Sometimes it doesn't. Sometimes it sits right next to you on a couch, saying nothing, waiting, and you don't recognize it because it doesn't look like what you expect. I didn't understand her loneliness, not while she was here. I understand it now in a way that doesn't help either of us. There's a difference between knowing something and being able to do anything about it. I'm aware of that difference every day. Mornings are slower now. I sit a bit longer before standing. I make tea and forget where I put the spoon sometimes. Small things. There's more time in the day than I know what to do with. That used to feel like something I didn't have enough of. Now it feels like something I can't use properly. I think about the conversations we didn't have. Not in a dramatic way, just in passing. Like remembering something you meant to do and didn't. Except this doesn't go away. If you're listening to this, you probably think there's still time to adjust things, to pay attention later, to say something when it feels more natural. That's what I thought. For a long time, I believed there would be a point where everything would slow down and I would finally notice what mattered. It did slow down, but not in the way I expected. Now there's nothing left to respond to, just space and memory. I get tired more easily now, not just physically. There's a kind of tiredness that comes from going over the same thoughts, knowing they won't change anything. I don't try to resolve it anymore. There isn't anything to resolve. This is just what's left. Some evenings, I sit in the living room as the light fades. I don't turn the television on right away. I just sit there. It reminds me of how things used to be, except now I can hear the silence clearly. Back then it was there too. I just didn't recognize it. I'm 72. There isn't a lot ahead of me. I don't say that with fear, just fact. I spend most of my time inside this house, moving slowly, remembering things at the wrong times, forgetting others completely. There's a chair by the window that I don't sit in. I leave it as it is. I'm not sure why. Maybe it doesn't matter. There are a lot of things that don't matter anymore, and a few that do, but only in a way that stays in your head. That's where it all is now. Nothing changes from here.